everybody, it's finally Friday, and it is hot in LA today and every day. We need some rain. For those of you who are getting cold weather, send it our way, because we don't have air conditioning here and Sean and I are dying of heat strokes. Hey. So anyways, but it's Friday. On the radio, you know how on my country station at 5 o'clock they sing it's finally Friday. That's where this whole thing came from. But on another station, they always go, it's Friday. There's like this little voice that comes over, and it's in the morning. So I get my Friday excitement all ramped up just in time. So when it's Friday, let's get down to business. I'm on Facebook. So if any of you asked your questions on Facebook using the hashtag KatieFAQ, I've already answered bunches of them. I was typing until my fingers flew off like that random commercial for kayak. Anyway, I have 3 questions today, and I have a journal topic. Thanks, Emmeline. I think I'm saying that right. Emmeline, thank you for that. So let's get going. But if you would like your question asked and Facebook is your preferred place, wait till next Friday and ask your question using the hashtag KatieFAQ, and I'll find it, okay? Question number 1. Hey, Katie, what is the best way to talk to your children about your self-injury scars or your self-injury in general? I thought this is a good question, and I don't know if I've answered it before. I know we've talked about this kind of thing before, like talking to others about it, but children, it can be really different and difficult because we don't want to share too much. We don't know how they're going to react. I think the things that I would keep in mind, if this is something you're considering, is the age of your children, if they ask a lot of questions. Now, as young children, like 6, 7, 8, we ask a lot of questions in general. Does that mean that we need to tell them? No. You could even say something as simple as like, oh, that's just something that happened to mommy when, years ago, and just brush it off. But if it's something that your children, they're getting older, they're in their teens or so, and they point them out and they ask questions about it, I would think about it and consider it based on what your child is like. Now, you can never give someone a disorder or an issue. So don't worry that telling them about this is going to make them catch it, because they can't catch it. I would just limit the amount that you talk about it so that it's clear for them, so that they can understand what you're trying to say. Now, the way that I have described it in family situations when we're talking about it, and we're talking to children, or even if we're talking to parents and we're trying to describe it, I always find it best to say, this is something I used to struggle with, and it was something that was a hard part in my life, and this is something I did to cope, and it really hurt me. And I'm over it now, and things are better. I would talk about it in that way. If they're younger, if they're older, you can obviously say something to the effect of, I had a really hard time earlier. Maybe you've told them about that. Like, I really struggled with depression in the past, and I've really been working on it, and that was part of that for me. Any kind of explanation like that. I find that telling them that, because this is children, right? And they depend a lot on us for the security and safety and feeling like everything's all right. I find talking about it, how it happened, when it happened, and that things are okay now. Like, you're working on it now and it's okay. Or I don't do that anymore. Or, mommy doesn't hurt herself anymore. Or however you want to verbalize it. And obviously a lot of the verbalization is going to depend on their age, but I find that to be the best, because letting them know that it's okay now will put them at ease. Helping them to understand what that came from or where that started or whatever can help them better understand you. And in the end, the more communication we can have with our children, the better our relationship can get, and the better and more healthfully it can grow. So I would practice in front of the mirror. I know that sounds really silly, or with your spouse if you are trying to figure out how to tell the children. Until you feel comfortable with it, because until we actually say it out loud, sometimes we don't even know how it's going to sound. And I find that just practicing things out loud can help us better get our bearings, so that we feel like, no, I'd like to say it this way because I don't want them to think this or whatever, and figure out what you're comfortable with. But the more we communicate about it and the more we're open with the discussion, the less of a deal it will feel like. It's often when we keep things in the secret, they feel like bigger and bigger than they really are. Okay? Question number 2. Oh, and if any of you have advice on that, if you've done that yourself, let us know. Let us know how you verbalized it and how it went, okay? Question number 2. Anyways, Katie, my question is, there was a beginning portion that wasn't part of the question. Would this be considered sexual abuse? My mom's ex-boyfriend used to put me on his shoulders or just pick me up playfully. But the thing is, he would always put his hand on my vagina. Usually his finger or his thumb would be in my vagina or almost in. This is very, very awkward for me even to write, as I've never told anyone, and I'm very embarrassed that I never told him to stop. the reason I'm asking this question is because I'd like to tell someone and start going to therapy. I just don't know if it will be taken seriously or if this is even sexual abuse. Thank you so much. I really hope that you answer. Now, I really wanted to talk about this because there are a lot of what people consider gray areas. Now, people not being professionals, people being those that have been abused, feeling like their abuse wasn't severe enough, just like we do with eating disorders, self-harm, like mine's not bad enough, I don't deserve to get help, I'm not going to be taken seriously. This is very much sexual abuse, what we're talking about. And the reason that we don't tell people to stop is what I talked about in one of my older videos. Oftentimes we don't understand. We don't know what's going on. Unless our abuse is very horrific and traumatizing in and of itself, oftentimes we're so young we don't even know that that's bad because no one's actually told us. We don't understand. We may feel a little uncomfortable, but we don't really know why. And so I find that a lot of people will take that and then think that, well, I should have said no. I should have said, what the heck is this? What's happening? Put me down, stop, whatever. But we just don't know to even say that. So they would definitely take you seriously. They would definitely call that sexual abuse. And I would try to find a therapist that is well versed in dealing with sexual abuse. That's something that they've worked with a lot. And I would also pick up, like I always say, the Courage to Heal workbook. It's one of my favorites. It really can help you better understand your process as well as insight into what's to come and how to work through it, and maybe some stuff that you're even like, well, it doesn't really apply to me, but it helps me to understand as a whole. I find it to be such a thorough, great book for understanding and processing through sexual abuse. Okay, I hope that helps. Question number 3. Hey, Katie, I rarely get sexually aroused. I think this is because of my eating disorder and my depression, but I was sexually abused at various points from 9 to 15. I get physical pain if I get aroused. Other than an STD check, I've never had anything check out. My GP says that given I have no continence issues, it is unlikely that anything is actually physically wrong. I haven't said about the pain. I don't know if it's a physical thing or a PTSD thing. It's worse during flashbacks and I just don't know what to do. Now, I really want to talk about this because many of you have messaged me about sexual arousal, not being able to climax, not feeling comfortable having sex, or feeling like it's more comfortable to have many partners and not actually be emotionally connected to someone. And so I wanted to just kind of start talking about this. And if you would like me to do a Monday video about this topic in more detail, I'm happy to do it. Because as I got to thinking about this question, there's a lot to it. But for this question in particular, we cannot get sexually aroused when we're depressed, for sure. And when we have an eating disorder, if we're under eating, if that's part of our eating disorder, it can definitely affect that, because you have to think of sexual arousal as an extra. It's something in our body that is an extra on top of just surviving, right? Just existing and living. Now, dopamine, a low amount of dopamine in our brain can often be attributed to having depression. And when we have a lot of dopamine, just to give you an example, we have like way too much dopamine is when we have kind of psychotic features, schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, when we hear voices and see things, that's when we have a lot. When we have very little is when we feel very depressed. And that chemical in our brain can also affect our arousal. Those suffering with anxiety and depression and PTSD, they find that it's really difficult for them to become sexually aroused. However, working through those things and talking to someone and processing through our depression or anxiety, maybe getting on medication, whatever it is, can often alleviate that. Although a lot of antidepressants do also make that difficult. So that's something that you'd want to talk to your doctor about. As far as the sexual abuse in the past, it's very, very common for those of us who have had sexual abuse past to struggle with intimacy and sexual arousal and sex in general in our future. I know I've talked about it in another video, but just to reiterate, when we've had such an abusive past and we don't really know what a normal, loving sexual relationship looks like, it's difficult for us to get aroused and to have sex with someone we care about, because that never was the case and it was never on our terms. Now, in the Courage to Heal workbook, it's towards the end. I forget the number of the chapter, but it's almost like the last chapter, the one before the last chapter. It's great. She talks about how to overcome that, how to work with your partner, how to, progressively allow it to happen, and to take your time, and to know that you can say stop at any time, and to just almost relearn how to love and how to be in love physically and show it physically through sex, and to take that time so that you can heal from the past abuse that's happened. Does that make sense? I know this is a lot, and maybe I should do a Monday video on it because there's so much information I'm trying to like condense into like a minute. But I hope that helps. Know that this is very normal. It's not as long as your GP says it's not physically an issue, it's a mental block, and it's something you can definitely work through in therapy. Okay? Now the journal topic, like I said, comes from Emmeline, and I hope I'm saying that right, Emmeline. It's a quote. She sent it to me on Instagram, and then I had her send it to me on Facebook. Said, the way I see it, every life is a pile of good things and bad things. The good things don't always soften the bad things, but vice versa, the bad things don't necessarily spoil the good things or make them unimportant. And I thought that was really great because oftentimes I find the negative voices just run our world, and it's so nice to be reminded that when bad things happen, that doesn't make the good things any less important or any less good or exciting. So I would encourage all of you, talk back to that negative voice this weekend and have some good things happen and just enjoy. Take pictures, send them to me, tweet them to me, send it to me on Instagram and on Facebook. Let me know what good things you're letting happen and not letting the bad things wreck them. Okay? Have a wonderful weekend, everyone. I'll see you on Monday, and on Tuesday I'll be on Tumblr, so ask your questions there. Bye!